Welcome to my new tutorial about Bach's Allemande from the G major suite. Today I would like to share some thoughts and reflections about this wonderful movement called Allemande. It has an exposed position within the suite somehow because it is less obvious in character and probably the most improvised and free and rhapsodic of all these dance movements. That's why I personally love Allemande so much, but they're not easy to play because as if you had too many liberties, it's really hard to bring a structure and a frame into this music. So that's what I would like to discuss today a little bit, share some of my thoughts and take you on a journey through this wonderful Allemande from the first suite in G major. I think it is very important, with an Allemande especially, but with all Bach movements, to first of all know where your big phrases are. It is often so tempting, especially in this music, which is so free and so improvisational and so rhapsodic, to get lost in small nuances. I mean, these nuances are really very important, but I think they should never overwhelm the big idea and the big line. So usually the tonalities define the big lines, and there are also some other aspects that come into the game. Let's have a look at this. So Allemandes usually start with a very bright and awake upbeat, a 16th note upbeat that contradicts a little bit to the flowing character of the whole piece, but is like a wake-up call or like an alert of being very conscious of what we're doing. That's the very first cellule, if you want. And then we have to see where the line goes to. Moves up to the D. And this is something we've heard already. The bass note B. Goes up to the C. And now it's interesting, this is one of the first surprises, isn't it? That's what you would expect, turning to the dominant, but Bach doesn't do that. Only here. To briefly come back to G major. So, what's going on here? We have this little intersection coming 3 times. And only here. Only here we have the dominant leading us back to the tonic. It is as if he wanted to leave us in some kind of ambiguous floating between G and D, not really deciding where to go. And this is very beautiful because it's not so obvious. It's sort of like someone thinking, I might do this, but maybe not. But okay, well, that should be a good idea. I think that's the mode we're in. And for me, it's always very interesting to stress a little bit this middle voice as you want. It's not the part of the main line, because the main line is only... That's the soprano line. And we have... 3 times as a second voice. So let's try to figure this out in one huge arch. And now we think the flow is about to start. This is something very beautiful, an idea the fantastic and eminent cellist Paul Tortelier refers to in the prelude of the first suite of Bach, but this can be applied also very well in the Allemande, that the music resembles a river or a flow, and the water passes by rapids and becomes dramatic, and then it passes by more tranquil places, valleys and open plains, where it becomes slow and contemplative. Then it goes through dark valleys and becomes, sort of doubtful and sinister, and then again it's filled with light. And so we have to shape and design these statuses of flowing of this river. And after this first cadenza, it's an interesting moment. We think that this typical Bach flow is about to start, and it sort of does. It goes to the B major 7 chord. But here again we have the same cadenza, only in the parallel minor key. At first, and then... So this reveals that the moment after the G major cadenza is not the beginning of the flow, but that is just an extension of the prologue. So the beginning goes all the way to here. And now our river begins to flow. So we're in this sinister valley of E minor, which is interesting to note that our journey of the flowing river begins from a rather dark moment. So it's like a first attempt to come from dark to light over the A major 7 chord, which timidly comes in and brings some hope. But he plays it twice. As if he couldn't really believe that some light is coming in, and he wants to hear it again. The first timid attempt of a dominant. But he prefers to go back to the secure haven of a tonic. Becoming more courageous, he goes to the double dominant of A7 major, and even with a second in the bass, still casting some doubt. And only here the dominant is established as a real new status of being and of some kind of an optimism and light coming up. So let's review this whole development once more. Come from the absolute dark. First attempt. Second attempt, becoming shortened. That's also a very typical architectural device to shorten the phrase. So first you have 4 bars, and then you have 2 and 2. G major. And he gets lost again in the dark. But rising up, he flirts with A7 major. it up from the dark bass to the light of the dominant. And here we really reach the dominant with the intermediate step of the tonic again. So this is great that you have this shady moment. And within this scale upwards is a hidden A major 7 chord. And there's this little epilogue. I think also that's very important, not to extend the phrase till the end, but the phrase already ends one bar before. And this is just an echo. But make sure to keep your echo with a little bit of tension, because remember, we're in the dominant key, and this is always a second level of tension and of expectation in the piece. And going on in the second part, we stay in the dominance. Stay in the same tonality here. D major. So coming into the second part, I would like to focus a little more on another issue than the big phrases characterized and driven by the harmonies. Let me point out another issue that is very important, especially in Allemands, because they're so free and so full of fantasy and so rhapsodic that you tend to get lost. I think it's vital to know if you have a main voice, a bass line, or a secondary voice, and be careful of the temptation that a secondary voice might sound as if a new phrase begins, but the opposite might be the case, that the secondary voice within the phrase supports the phrase and gives it even more tension. And sometimes playing two voices on a cello requires big shifts of position, like the soprano will be high on the A string, and then we have to jump down in the bass and back in the first voice. So these jumps need to be timed well and should not take too much time in order not to evoke the start of a new idea. And this is a lot the case in the second part of this wonderful Allemande. Bass note. Soprano, bass, soprano, bass, soprano. So if I can break it down, I can reduce it to the single lines. It's rather simple. This will be the soprano line, but of course it's filled up with our other notes, but these notes are not in the same line, they're in another voice. Bass voice. Go back to soprano. Middle voice. Bass voice. Upper voice. Bass voice. Upper voice. Middle voice. Bass voice. Middle voice. Upper voice. Soprano voice. So this is a little confusing, and maybe the middle voice and the upper voice cannot be precisely separated. But I just wanted to point out that it's jumping up and down, and we should not be tempted to start new phrases. This would be sort of extending the small phrases into bigger ideas, and this is very dangerous, and then the audience will not be able to follow and by the bits and pieces get confused. So the harmonic progression leads us to minor, to A minor, and many think it's over here, but it's not yet. Only here the A minor really is established within this cadenza. So from the double bar until here we need to span a huge arch, and now a second idea begins to unfold. This is a beautiful progression, one of my favorite moments of this piece, going to the subdominant, subdominant C major, B major 7, A minor 7, and we stay open suspended through the A major 7 chord, G major 7 chord, subdominant, dominant. We come to the final cadenza of this piece, and we're home back in G major. And similarly to the first part, also here, he ends with an additional bar, sort of like an epilogue, like an echo. Keep in mind that there are 3 levels. One is the basic phrase, and I always take a pencil and mark in my score from where to where the big lines go. Then there's the harmonic progression that shows you if there's more tension, more light, or more darkness in your developing idea. And then there's the third idea of subordinated voices. That means these voices don't determine a phrase, but they determine another layer of instrumentation within a phrase. So this is important to keep in mind whether you're playing one voice, 2 voices, 3 voices, or another phrase. I hope these reflections might save you some time the next time you look at this piece, and especially enhance your pleasure in listening to this wonderful music by J.S.Bach. I will follow this tutorial by playing the whole movement for you. Thank you.